So what's the topic for tonight?
It's basically a Genesis review, mainly Genesis review or a Genesis partial related topic, and the horoscope. If you know anything about what a horoscope means to a Jew compared to what the horoscope means to anybody else in the world,
Well,
feel free.
unfortunately, astrology nowadays means the same to a Jew as it does to the non-Jewish nations of the world.
What does it mean in halakha and usage? Because
Well, I mean,
apparently
halakha
it was
nothing. In mysticism, for example, Mazel Tov, when we say Mazel Tov, we're basically saying you should be placed under a certain constellation. And people say that, I mean, they think it means congratulations or good luck, but it means good
something like
constellation.
good concept. Wow, I thought it was like good flow.
This is why Soul Mazel, this whole nonsense. There's a famous statement by Chazal that says, "In Mazel Israel," that the zodiacs don't affect Israel. But I mean, that being said, many of our sages did believe in astrology.
Wasn't there something that before the flood, there was a time when man could look up at the stars and be a witness to the gears turning in the world, something like that, and we lost it, and it's gone forever, and pretty much anything that's come of that since has been hokey? I've heard that one take. I'm just curious.
Right. In Hilchos Avodah Zarah of the Rambam, he starts off laying down the basis for idolatry. And it starts out that like people used to admire the stars as the servants of God. They attest to God's creation, but then they began to worship the stars. That is the acronym that the censors came up with, AKUM, which is Ovdei Kochavim Umazalot. Even in the word for idolatry, Ovdei Kochavim, worshippers of the stars, Umazalot, and Mazal, constellation. So the whole notion of Mazel, with anyone who knows anything on the basis of Avodah Zarah, is not a term that you want to toss around as the basis of your organization unless you know nothing of the history of idolatry within the Jewish people. Now, I also say Mazel Tov, Mazal Tov, whatever, well, colloquially, that's what people say. But it's a shame people don't know where that actually comes from and what it means. I mean, it's kind of sad. If you don't say it, then whatever, you're not Jewish, right? There's a lot of things that we just do to sort of go with the flow.
Put a kibosh on my own personal takes on things. You get that sometimes where your personal take on thing goes right out the window and you don't even touch it. It's when I was reading, and it was actually in a class that Gav was in. It was in the Mishnah Torah. It was Rambam's Mishnah Torah, and it was discussing that the planets or whatever these things are, righteousness or what we call Jupiter now, that they were actually conscious things, and they were in perfect harmony with God's law, or they were in perfect harmony with heaven. And that blew my mind. Now, I understand that Torah is very geocentric. We are Israel land-centric. And even if we look at the creation, it's very geocentric in Judaism. But what a concept that this would be taught by the Rambam, that these are conscious entities that we're not supposed to, but we don't relate to. That right. Can anything be more mind-blowing? Maybe there's a reason why people were. What's he saying here? What do you think is going on?
All this is just opinion, by the way. The Rambam was big into philosophy, and Platonic philosophy taught erroneously that the planets actually made a sound, that the spinning of the planets made some sort of melody. The Rambam was just quoting Plato. That was disproven by science. The planets don't make a sound when they spin or whatever. The Rambam brings down a lot of philosophy. Now, the Rambam teaches that even ideas that were taught by Aristotle and Plato were initially Jewish because, as tradition tells us, Shlomo Melech was given all the wisdom of the world, then it was lost in some way. So within that wisdom, all this was contained, and then it was adopted by the Greeks, according to the Rambam. So if it works, it's ours. Because of this, they burned his books, mainly because he brought in a lot of foreign ideas, which is not a bad thing to learn what works from the non-Jewish nations. Well, the whole basis for monotheism in Judaism was developed by the Rambam.
So you're saying that what the Rambam says about the planets isn't in the Talmud?
Not that I'm aware of. The closest thing to anything like that is a book called Sefer Yetzirah. This book is actually quoted in the Talmud. It's known as a book of creation. It's like legend. People say it was written by Abraham. A lot of these ideas that even appear in the Talmud are attacked by rabbis later on. like the notion of a besheret. Besheret is like your soulmate. In the Talmud, it alludes to the notion, the Ramban also teaches on it, that before a man is born, God does the shidduch in heaven. He does the match. That it's initially one piece, and then they're split up into two, and then that is your match that you have to sort of unite with in this world. That's a nice idea that people teach nowadays, but the Talmud goes further. It has the zivug rishon and zivug sheni and shlishi. In other words, because polygamy is actually part of Judaism, it says that you may have one, two, even three matches in the world. Of course, that's not taught nowadays. So the Rav Tzadok Gaon actually attacks that notion as foolish, even though it was taught by our sages. Why? Because it encourages people not to date. And I've seen this also in the Jewish world, that people are so picky because they think that the person they're supposed to marry is supposed to be like their soulmate. So you have women in Israel going on like shidduch dates for 50, 60 times because they haven't found their soulmate. There is no soulmate in this world. It's whatever you make it. You could meet someone that is your opposite and make it work. That's life. And there's people who think they love each other and they get each other's names tattooed on them the first week and everything, and then after the first month they can't stand each other. I think this is why the Rasag attacked that notion.